Hey everyone, welcome back to Jesse's Shed. If you're like me at the moment, you've probably given up all hope of ever leaving the country. You might have gone out and blown all those spare Kermits on a dirty great four-wheel drive with plans of going around the country and seeing what we've got here in Australia. So if that's the case, I'm sure there's 100 things you want to do to it. We want to throw a snorkel on, big tyres, jack it up, bull bars. But there's one thing that you really need to do first, and it gets overlooked by too many people, and that's a battery isolator and a dual battery system. So today I'm going to cover off installing a dual isolator or dual battery isolator and sort of the basics of what it can do for your car and what it will and won't do. So all your accessories, your snorkels, winches, bull bars, diff lockers, all of that, they're fantastic, but they're absolutely useless.
Unless you've got power!
I've learnt this the hard way quite a few times, and as a result, I never have a four-wheel drive that doesn't have a dual battery system and an isolator in it. Now this particular model is a 200 series Sahara, and it comes with two batteries in it already. A lot of people make the mistake though, thinking that it is a proper dual battery system where you have a start battery and then a deep cycle battery. This is just two batteries linked up that just give you extra capacity. So at the end of the day, if you plug something into your accessories and leave it running, you will deplete both batteries and your car still will not start. So what we're going to do today is break that system apart, put an isolator and a charging regulator onto the starting battery so that when the secondary battery gets too low, the start battery will be protected and you won't have to worry about not being able to start the car. So your kit consists of three main things. You've got your isolator, which has some really great features on it. It's an electronic isolator which allows you at the touch of a button to reconnect the batteries. It also shows you when the car's charging and when it has isolated your batteries. On top of that, it comes with a mounting kit to go onto the new battery. It's got your terminals, a fuse block. It also comes with all of the necessary fuses to connect it, so you don't need to worry about finding spots and finding fuses and all of that to work with your system. And then it also comes with more than enough cable if you're mounting both batteries under the bonnet. If you're running to the back of a tray, you may need some more, but for all the cars I've done, it's always been sufficient. So the first thing we do, we want to remove this cover here. This exposes the wiring loom that runs between the two batteries. We're going to get rid of that for the moment. And don't do like I just did then and flip all of your toggles out because they're a pain to find. Not paying attention because I'm filming and I'll get to dig those out later. There goes another one. So this is that main wiring loom that I was talking about. We're going to, we don't have to get rid of it, but we're going to reroute this to where it comes across to our battery isolator. So I'll just cover that off now, the actual loop that we're going to do. Okay, so in the 200 series, your starting battery is the one on your passenger side. You can tell that if you want to double check because the alternator cable comes up to it. What we're going to do is remove this cable. We're going to then have a positive that comes from the starting battery positive up to the main on the isolator. And then we're going to have a positive cable that comes from the aux, and that is going to be replacement for this cable here. So that'll run from the aux across to your starting battery. What that allows it to do then is if your starting battery gets too low, this will disconnect these two cables here. So your main battery will still be connected to the car, but your secondary battery will only be connected to things that are directly connected to the positive and negative on that battery. It won't be able to discharge this battery anymore if it's not connected to this battery. As with anything, when you're working on electrical things on your car, make sure you disconnect both the negatives on your batteries. We're going to pretty much disconnect everything off these ones, but if the negatives are off, you're not going to short anything to the frame of the car. Do it on both batteries, don't forget and think that well, I've got the main one off because technically there is still a link between the batteries until I do this. Now if you do this and like me it wants to come back down, make sure that you actually physically isolate that negative so it can't touch the terminal anymore. So once we've got that cable out of the way, the first thing we want to do is mount our isolator onto this box so it's got some time to dry. All I use is just a clear RTV silicone. That goes around the base of the isolator. It gives it a bit of a cushioning effect, and it also, once it's dry, it goes nowhere. Just to keep it secure while it's drying, I use a couple of just self-tapping screws. These come in the kit. And once it is dry, I actually take those out and replace them with a small bolt and a nut with a lock nut on it, and then you put a bit of silicone underneath where it protrudes. There's plenty of room between the fuses and this lid, so they won't touch, but I always put a bit of silicone and make sure that's dry before I put the lid back on, and that just allows for nothing to touch on the inside, and it's a really, really strong, secure connection. Mine's going to mount in this position because the way this sits in the car, I want this earth cable to come across and then mount onto the sidewall. So with your cable that was supplied in the kit, you just want to mock it up and see roughly how much you're going to need. Alright, so this is our two cables cut. We have the shorter one that's going to go from the main on your isolator across to the starting battery positive, and then you have your longer one which is going to go from the aux on the isolator. That's then going to come across into this fused block onto this terminal here, which is on your secondary battery. The kit comes with 4 lugs, they're 25mm squared ones, and you just cut the cable back to the right size. We're then going to crimp these on and put some heat shrink over them, and then a protective corrugated wrap over it as well, just as a extra layer of security. So the first thing we're going to do now is connect the positive main to the starting battery. This is our short cable. As you can see, I've got a protective corro wrap around that as well, but that's going to go from your main on your isolator across to the positive terminal on your main battery. The isolator comes with a washer, a lock washer or a spring washer, and a nut, and it's just a 10mm nut that you put on. And that's it. Now we're going to run our cable from the auxiliary on the isolator across through onto our secondary battery. The great thing about this install on a 200 series is you can pretty much use all of the original mounting points. There's very little hiding cables or anything. Make sure both your neutrals are still disconnected off your batteries. You don't want to have power to this at the moment in case you short one of these across while running it. But it's just exactly the same. We go 10mm nut with a washer and a spring washer. So the cable's run. I just remembered about the fused link that we've got to put in there. This is going to go on the positive terminal of your secondary battery. We've got 3 fuses. There's the main fuse. This breaks the link if that cable coming from the isolator is damaged. This is your main fuse and sort of your protection. These other ones are 2 30-amp fuses, and they can run any accessories that come off of this. It's just an extra little feature that it comes with. I think it's great because it can eliminate a few fuses from under your bonnet. It's nice and neat. So basically the 2 outer fuses go on, and we've got nuts that go onto those, and then they've got a lock washer on them, and then we've got nuts that go onto this. Only do up the top ones for now because you're going to want to attach your accessories to the other ones. And obviously your cable's got to go onto this one. Just attach this on nice and tight. Your negative is still off the battery at this stage. And then this is where, if we've given ourselves enough cable, we can link this in nice and neat. Okay, so we're all done up. So we've got our link attached to the battery. These are all done up. This is our main fused link here. That goes back over to your aux on your isolator. Then we've got these two other accessory fuses. I've used one that just runs a couple of the accessories on the car. And then I've got one that already has a fuse in it, and I don't want to be chasing multiple fuses, so I've just put that directly onto the battery itself. Once you've got that all done up and you're happy with it, it's just a case of putting that on. It's nice and neat, like a shithouse seat. And then we just tidy all this up. This is a rat's nest, I'm not happy with it, so I'll do a bit of work with that later. But really, we're following our main cable across on the old connections. That's going to be hidden away. We're going to pop out with one going to the auxiliary, one going to the main. Now we'll just do up this final negative lead and we're in business. Now, one scenario that you can run into is where you don't flatten your secondary battery, but you actually flatten your primary battery. This can be a case of you've left an accessory running in the car that, say the radio that was running all night, you've gotten on the drink camping and you've completely forgotten about it. This thing will still, at the point that both batteries deplete to a certain voltage, it will disconnect both batteries. Your main battery will be running the radio, and then your secondary battery will just be sitting there doing nothing. If that happens, a nice feature about this is you can click this override button here. That will actually relink both batteries. And if you sit here for long enough, it will actually trickle charge this battery off of that battery. It won't completely renew it, but it hopefully will get you to the point where you can start your car. If you leave it for a couple of minutes, because they're linked, the starter battery will be able to draw power and hopefully crank the engine. This is if you don't have jumper leads or something else to get it started in a pinch. And that's it. That's it all buttoned back up. Apart from my little rat's nest over here that's my own doing, it's a really neat install. You get this nice cover over it on your secondary battery here. There's only two cables that come out and run off to your isolator. Isolator's nice and clean. And it's a really reliable, easy system to use. So I'd really recommend this. It's one of the first things you should do on any car, and then get to all the fun stuff after that. At least you've got peace of mind when you're running your accessories after that it's not going to completely kill the battery. So that's it, guys. That's all there was to it. It took less than an hour, even including all the filming and mucking around. As always, this isn't a full instructional, this is just how I did this, and I really recommend this kit to anybody that hasn't done these sort of things before, because everything is included. You only need basic hand tools to get it in, and it's a very neat finish. It's out of the way, there's no moving parts or anything, it's a digital system, so very reliable, and it's going to get you out of a jam. In a situation where you could have had completely dead batteries, hopefully you can at least get your car started. and then charge it back up. As always, if you enjoyed this or it helped you out, give me a like, consider subscribing and leave a comment, and stick around next time for the next video. Thanks.